Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday, um, after our session, uh, at the end of it anyway, Nick asked what was the dream that we were referring to. And I told him and the rest of you guys that I would repeat it um, today. And I'm going to do that. And I know normally we start with if there are any questions. If you have any, I would appreciate it if you will hold them until I present the dream and get some responses to it because uh, I probably won't be able to be on for the entire session. And after that, if there are questions, we can have that discussion if it's okay with you guys. Okay.
Okay.
So, all right, thanks. The dream that I had was March um, 17th, I think it was. And what I asked Barbara to organize a program for us. And the program was for the purpose of hosting a guest preacher. And it was in a building that I had never seen before. She had organized it in a building. The building was light. It was, when I looked at it, it was not material, earthly material. The building itself was light. And when we arrived at the building, it was filled to capacity. And there were a large number of people there, yet the only face that I recognized when we arrived was was Barbara's. But I recognized the voices of the teachers. All of the teachers were there, and um, but all the teachers now I remember were light. And once the message, the guy started delivering the message, I could see the face of the preacher, yet I can't describe him because um, it was dark. He was dark, and not dark in terms of dark skinned, but just darkness. Um, and the message, after he finished delivering the message, I really didn't remember anything that he said. Yet I knew that it wasn't what we had been shown in terms of our teaching. I knew it was like a normal church message, but I can't tell you anything that was said in that regard. So when he completed the message, I was for some reason separated from him. And during the period that I was separated from him, I saw a book lying on the floor. And on the cover of that book, there were two hands, and both of them were translucent. They were light. And I touched the book, and the hands got brighter, and they began to raise uh, from the book. And as the hands rose from the book, the light of the hands began to swirl like a tornado, but not that fast. Uh, and they were they were moving in opposite direction as they spun, swirl coming up off the book. And the swirling was like deliberate and slow. And as they swirled, a voice spoke to me and said, "Witness the light and the life of humanity rising from the soul of the African." And the light continued to swirl. People became visible, and I could see them. Uh, they were in different areas of the earth, and and they as I saw them, they were in different lands, different areas, different places. As and then they began to take on human form, and all of them looked different, yet they were the same. Then, excuse me, then the earth began to separate, and the lands began to separate from each other. So then the preacher appeared again, and as we were leaving the structure, I saw a friend of mine. His name is Train, and as we were approaching the vehicle that we had come in, that the preacher and I had arrived, and the preacher said he was going to drive his own car, and I asked him, "Where did this car come from?" And he said that he had it delivered to him, and he would drive us back to the building, uh, to our original point of what the original building that we left in the beginning. And the car itself was a bright yellow with a black interior. And I'm thinking in my head, this is a very nice car. And and he entered the driver's side, and we left. We got lost, and um, I was telling him that we were not supposed to be traveling in the direction that we were heading, and he insisted that he knew where he was going. And he asked my friend, Train, who was in the back seat at that time, to give him $110. And Train said, if you have a 10, I have 110. And Train gave him $130. Um, and he gave him uh, the change, which was $10 he gave him actually. And I in my mind, I knew that his expectation was to receive $110 from everyone who had attended the program. So he couldn't find his way back to the place of our beginning, nor could he remember how to get back to where the program had taken place. So Train noticed that we had left the state, and the preacher tried using the GPS. It wouldn't work, and he handed it to me, and I wasn't able to type in a destination that we wanted to go back to, because we were trying to get back to where we had come from. Finally, I heard voices of the teachers, and then these voices became very apparent as to who they were, and they were searching for us, and I could hear a male voice or male voices, and and I heard Kathy distinctively, and she said, uh, I could hear her voice, but I could not understand exactly what she was saying, but I knew it was her voice. And as I said, you guys were searching for us. When Kathy finished speaking, we were back at the place of the program, and no one was in the driver's seat. And we were being told to follow the guide in front of us. A voice was telling us that, and I never saw anyone. Uh, the driver's seat in the car that we were in, like I said, was vacant, and I actually told Train to get in, but he couldn't get out of the back seat, and nobody could occupy the driver's seat. So I was no longer visible to myself. Yet we were following the guide who told us to follow it, and everything around us was light at this point. The light was peace, and was the life of of the human, and the African was everywhere. Um, and no longer could I see the hands. Everything was changing into light, and I awakened at uh, um, when I woke up. It was like five 5:43, I think it was. But anyway, um, and that's it.
Any questions?
Thank you. Immediately, at least to me anyway, that dealing with the dark preacher was the most immediately understandable, at least for me. And seeing the nice car with the bright outside, but the sort of dark interior, very immediately meaningful as the appearance of material splendor, but containing no real substance. And then to me, it sounds like whatever connection you have to wanting to remain in some way connected to regular preachers, if even to attempt to help move them out of their state of ignorance and confusion. If that in any way, energetically, spiritually, moves you off the path that you are meant to be on by contacting them and sort of being in their state of awareness for too long, kind of, we will find you and bring you back. Even if it means you have to sever your connection in some way to all the dark preachers that you are familiar with, on whatever level. And to me, it seems like once that happens, there's no returning to attempt to help them. And that's the meaning I took from that. Well, I should say that is the intuitive meaning that rose up in me while listening to it. So it seems like to me, we're very close to a time where you will no longer even need to deal with any of them. And in fact, dealing with any of them will be detrimental. Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you. Anyone else?
Did anyone see anything in the lands being separated?
I was gonna
I
ask.
I think that has some meaning, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is.
I perceived it to be consciousness. The consciousness of the African being separated from all of the things that has been put us in a state of confusion, and the spiritual consciousness being separated. That's how I saw it. Now, I'm not saying that's the only message there. So, because as we all know, that visions and dreams have multiple messages. So,
I saw it as the root of all of consciousness was based in the African. Even though the lands, with the hands swirling up and the light going to different parts of the world, different lands, different countries, and the lands are separated, the root of it all came from that same source of light, which was the African.
I guess I was thinking about when we originally heard this and Audrey first mentioned Merkaba to us and what that meant and what she was saying. And I'm listening to it again, as you mentioned, the disappearance of the pastor, the separation of land, the swirling of the hands, and the deliberate motion of them and the light. Could this be a message telling us, because this chariot that we look at, when we look at it from Isaiah, could it also be saying that we're at a point where we all recognize individually and collectively that the material world is not sustainable in spiritualness? The two worlds don't go together, and we are being given an opportunity to be spiritual beings and understand what that is. And one of the things that I think that kind of hit me in the last couple of weeks is we're right in the middle of the how-tos. We've seen all these things have been revealed to us. And now we're seeing, as you walk into your newness, as you usher in a new heaven and a new earth, you're understanding the power and authority that comes with that. And you're understanding your responsibility that comes with that. As we said on yesterday, that human has a responsibility on both sides to those who have come before him and those who are coming after. So could this be a cutting loose of the material world, a cutting loose of everything that is religious, and us making the choice to step into the realm of spirituality, even to the point that you forego everything that may have been important to you, and follow this, because one of the messages I got from the voices when Pastor got lost, or when the driver got him lost, is the teachers called him back. So that to me is indicative of us making a choice. You could have embraced the religious message, or you could yearn to have the truth that you have come to realize that you are. So that to me also represented choice. So, but anyway, that's part of my 2 cents on it after hearing it again.
Additionally, the GPS is something physical in a sense that we use to provide direction, and that failed. That did not work.
Yeah.
But what did work were the voices, and it doesn't matter that the voices were not near. They were not needed. They didn't need to be near. The voices were a spiritual calling, and that transcended any physical kind of realm. So it just was a reminder to rely on the spiritual directions that we have, rather than any physical kinds of, as you said, any physical kinds of things. Don't count on that.
And to add to that, it said, follow the guide in front of you. We tend to think of in front of us as outside of us, but I don't think it is in this case.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that our higher consciousness, follow that guide in front of us. So yeah, GPS won't do it. You've got to follow the inner guide. And it's
Yeah.
not out in front of us, separated from us. It's in us.
It also sounds to me like to not return to what is behind you already. Either in the past or maybe more metaphorically.
I don't know if you guys can tell, but I am really sort of fascinated with the swirling hands and the wind and the light. I was looking up Merkaba again, and there was a part of it that I don't quite understand, but I think I see it in part because every time I read something on it, it talks about the geometry, the figures around it, and that being the aura around the human, the spiritualness of it. And when you look at that, though, mathematics has no limitations. If these numbers, if these geometrical shapes and figures have meaning to them, you are the one that establishes that. You are the one who talks about that energy, how much energy that you obtain, what is your desire, and your level of spirituality, if that can be measured, I guess. But that kind of stuck out to me when I was reading and it was talking about the mathematics determine the shapes of it and the strength and the amount of light that each person, excuse me, that each one of us have. That just kind of further intrigued me and kind of stands together with what has already been said. That is a very powerful message that I don't want us to miss.
Also interesting because Merkaba is the Merkaba is the vehicle, and it is when you see it geometrically represented, it's usually the two pyramids, the one pointing up, the one pointing down. That's the masculine and feminine, and they spin.
Yeah.
So it's interesting in the vision, there was the difference between what appears to be the whirlwind or a little tiny whirlwind as the representation of the swirling energy versus the car, which is the physical material sort of vehicle as opposed to the spiritual vehicle. I thought that was interesting.
This is Richard. If I could ask a question, Pastor, how did you, I don't know that you told us, maybe I missed it. How did you feel in the moments or hours after the dream? Because my sense of the dream is it's telling you you've come from a place to something, and the question is whether you've really let go, maybe, of all of that past, or whether it's still what? There's still energy in it for you. So did you tell us? I'd be interested to know.
I first of all, how I felt. Let me address that first. When I was awakened and during the time that I was holding it, I felt really light. And as I said earlier, I had a pain in my chest when I woke up. However, as far as my emotions were concerned, I felt really light. It's almost like I was floating as I was moving to my desk to do the writing. And when I came back to the room and laid back down, it's almost like I went to sleep instantly. Now, as far as my connections with it, I felt like that I was the preacher, the guest speaker, as well as me. And that was that portion of my past, the preacher past, being separated from me once and for all. And the light being me not being able to visibly see myself was me actually seeing myself, but not in a physical form. So, Richard, I think if I'm hearing your question correctly, that it was more symbolic of me separating totally from the darkness that has been taught. And I've noticed since then, by the way, been able to see more and more of the light of Kemet since I had that vision. I'm hoping, Richard, that responded to your question.
You did, because I know in the several times in my life when I've had a dream that was that real, profound, in one instance, there was still some, I don't want to use the word trouble, but there was some churning after the fact. So I had a sense, I guess, ultimately that there wasn't a completion there. But I suppose the traditional thing to say is if you felt a certain calmness, then this was, in fact, maybe you're finally breaking free of that past, which I can say from my perspective, you do bring up. So the fact that we bring it up again and again tells us that we're still holding on to it, or it's still holding on to us in some way. So at least that would be my sense. And it's not a question of hoping that for you or not. It's just the reality of how did you feel? So is there a sense of final sort of release from that was you, and that's it?
I can, yeah. Let me address that, Richard, if I may. It is, but it does not mean that my remembrance of it is gone. Let me give you an example of what I'm saying. It changed my view because today's Easter. And when we think about today being Easter, what happened is Jesus. We were taught that Jesus died in the year of 30. And we were taught that Jesus died at age 33. And if that is the case, if Jesus died at the age of 33, and he died in the year of 30, then that means that he would have had to have been born in the year 27 BC, which would be 3 years before he was born. So that doesn't make sense. So that kind of observance, or that kind of picture I'm being shown of what's being written and taught in the scriptures, the discrepancies, I'm seeing it. So when you say that I'm separated from it, yes, but at the same time, that separation from it has given me a bird's eye view of it. I'm far enough away from it now to see it for what it is, and to see the discrepancies that we have held on to in a different way than I saw them in the past, if that makes any sense.
It does. And I guess it's part of my question or sense or wondering, you know, there's an expression of what you can objectively observe, you can control. I don't know that I'd use the word control, but that coupled with the fact that if you had a sense that there's no longer any energy in this that's pulling at me, you of course don't have to forget it, but it's just there, and you can move into being what you're becoming. That's all. And
Thank
that's
you.
something you have to feel and know.
Well, I see that also as being able to talk with people who are still in bondage to it and ask them questions like, for example, the one I gave in terms of the birth, the death of Jesus. Ask them questions like that. If he was born in 30, he's 33, then that means that he had to be born before he was born in order for that to be true, that kind of stuff. That's what I see, those kinds of things. I see things like, I think I mentioned this yesterday. If Jesus not be raised from the dead, then our preaching is in vain and our faith is in vain. And then my response to that to you guys would be that he was not raised from the dead. However, if I'm talking to other people and I read that scripture, then I go into the other scriptures like Matthew, Mark, and John and show the differences of what's supposed to have happened when the resurrection took place. And with that being confusing because they're so markedly different in terms of the things that took place, now we go back to that. If Jesus was not risen from the dead, then our preaching is in vain, which means that it's in vain because he wasn't raised based upon the scriptures themselves, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm beginning to see. And looking at them and being able to help people navigate through the minefield of manipulation, the minefield of mind control, so that people can actually begin to see not only who they are, but to embrace the true nature of what enlightenment is, as opposed to pseudo enlightenment that we have been offered and given. I'm done.
So, Pastor, this is Charles. I'm understanding when the earth was separating, it was for not only you, but everybody else to know, because it's more for you, because you just said it's a separation of what religion's been teaching and what been said to us, and you had said that we're on a different path now than we ever have been. Is learning the truth more than anything, and this is the first step of everything for the first time.
I can see what you're saying, Charles. I do believe that this is an opportunity to see with a greater clarity the light of Kemet and what it means. I also believe that the rapidity that we are seeing or experiencing rather with our understanding the mysticism of Kemet is happening so rapidly because we are in a critical period in terms of the existence of humanity in this earth. And that critical period is coming to a head in just a few months. And we have to be poised to be the mitigators of anything that could be catastrophic to the existence of humanity. And I also believe that since the Creator has placed me where I am in terms of covering, I have to see it. I have to experience it. All of us have to see it. All of us have to experience it. And we are at a space now where we will experience it. I am going to have a meeting with all the teachers very soon, and we are going to delve deeper into the understandings of the light of Kemet so that we can bring it to this forum for the express purpose of putting it in the macro as well as in the hearts and souls of the people who are listening at that moment. And I do believe that we will observe a major shift that the earth has never experienced since the beginning. Ron said something to me a few days ago, and I think he kind of said it in passing, but it stuck with me. Whether we like it or not, we're having to return to beginning. And that said to me, we've seen the beginning of humans in the earth when we talked about the Twaboti people. Now what we are actually seeing is the beginning of spirituality in this earth, and that beginning of the foundation of spirituality or the power of spirituality in the earth is housed in this place called Kemet. And it's not a geographical location as much as it is a spiritual reality that we are beginning to see and to embrace. Any questions about that? Are that clear?
So is that the recovery of spirituality? Because spirituality never left. It's just been
Right.
overlaid with so many isms and schisms and doctrines, et cetera, et cetera. But it's beginning in Kemet. We're understanding that knowledge and recovering that knowledge again, in a sense, or uncovering that knowledge again in us of who we are.
Yes. Yes, Bob. That's a better way of putting it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think too, it's especially a rediscovery and of uncovering for the African,
Yes.
which fairly significant, I think.
It is definitely significant. It's extreme because.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Other thing we said last time was that you actually experience this, and that's more powerful than anything. So we were talking at some point in the past about being able to walk through walls. You are able to do that. We are able to do that. We just have to understand and know that we can. And it is through the Merkaba. It's through this vehicle, this chariot, if you will, that we bring these cosmic energies together to bear, that we are able to do this. And the folk in all of those lands and types of consciousness, we touch them through the macro. So even that is being where they are, in a sense, instead of just thinking we are here and they are there. Well, it's not. We are there. We are where they are, and they are where we are, if that resonates.
It does.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. This is George in Philly. What intrigued me was when Pastor, spoke about the interior of the car being black and the outer diameter of the car was yellow. And again, in terms of just looking at images or perceptions, what came to my mind is everything came out of darkness. But when we begin to look at other colors intermingling, or when I look at green, when I look at black and yellow, you come up with the color green. Now, what does green represent? When we talk about the organic life, the plants are green. When we talk about, again, life manifesting from the color of black, and again, we have, the color yellow, what does that green represent? Is that organic life manifesting, in that way that we're seeing, that Pastor, that I guess that you're seeing it, but I think that it has some significance with regards to what is manifesting out of the dream. So, the two colors, the black and the yellow kind of intrigue me, and something that was said earlier I think that your dream, Pastor, was on March the 17th, 2024.
Correct.
Okay, and if that's so, if we look at it numerically, and we look at the date, we look at the month, and we look at the year, the numbers total 19. But coming to that root number is 20. And I know that Nick mentioned about the two pyramids, the temple up and down. And again, what does the number 2 represent? And I think, Barbara, you might have talked about it before in terms of duality, but the masculine and feminine energy. So again, what does that mean in reference to the dream? But I thought that those were some things that came to my, intuition with regards to the dream. So I just wanted to share those thoughts.
Well,
I'm done.
thank you, George.
Another thing,
Go ahead.
another thing is the 19, the root also is 1 plus 9 equals 10, and 1 plus 0 equals 1. And so another way to look at it is the inside of the vehicle.
1 plus 9 is
What?
10.
1 plus 9 is 10, and then you get 1 plus 0. You get to
Yeah.
the root of 10.
Right. My
Which
apologies.
is 0.
Barbara. Thanks for the correction. Thank you.
But the inside, another way to look at it is looking at womb, the darkness, and we talked about wisdom. When we go to beginning, it shows us that we're able to create. What are we going to do with that creation? Are we going to create? Is it going to be that yellow card that distracts us, or is it going to be us remembering and acknowledging what wisdom is, what love is? But I think that's, you said it last time. You said that we are the water, and we are the water giver. We are both. We are the gift, and we are the gift giver. And so it's in that wisdom of understanding the Elohim that we are, that we can use that womb to create what it is that the world needs, which is peace, love, stability, sharing, all of that stuff, rather than distractions, rather than having distractions, and rather than having to look at signs now that tell us Miami is 1,200 miles away, or the GPS says, well, I got to go here and then I got to go there. The experience that you shared was that I don't have to use any of those external kinds of means of directions, etc. That I am the direction, and I can be wherever I need to be, when I need to be there, how I need to be there, in the manner and the mode and the means by which I need to be there. And then so being, then I share what is needed, as it's needed, when it's needed, how it's needed.
I embrace that wholeheartedly. Resonates deeply.
Mhm. Gosh.
The green also speaks of renewed life in the earth. As the sun begins its trek back north, after the winter solstice, 3 days later, it begins its trek towards the north. What happens? It begins to bring renewed life into the earth. Green speaks to that. And when we are talking about balance and harmony, we are talking about a renewal of life in the earth. So
Balance. When Pastor first mentioned the dream, and even now when he talked about the hands, I wonder if one hand was masculine and the other one feminine. And that's not a trick question for him. I'm saying that from a spiritual perspective, that I've never given any consideration to my hands being masculine and feminine. What do I mean by that? Merkaba means to bring balance, or not only enlightenment, but to bring balance. So those hands turn the book loose because they saw balance. They're not going to give that book to someone that did not understand that principle. And this is me talking. This is my, what I see in this. And I listened to what Nick said and what George said and what Barbara has said, and looking at this masculine and feminine energy, that's what we're coming into now. My hands don't decide who picks up the pencil, or my hands don't decide how the trash is taken out. It works in harmony, and that harmony is the masculine and femininity of my body. Same with my feet and my eyes. We are coming into a new expression of who we are. And that is the balance that we speak of. So the green that George talks about, and the renewing and life forces, all of that is coming to place as we speak. And I think gaining this type of understanding is what's going to bring the harmony as well. But that just kind of, and we are not through with this word at all. I think it opens up so much more, that we are not understanding a spiritual concept that we're learning. We're understanding a spiritual concept that we are becoming. You are a chariot. You are a mover of energy. You are the energy that moves, that swirls and that changes the heavens and the earth. So anyway, that's I'm
I
done.
think, Ron, I think that it's not one hand feminine and the other one masculine. I think both of them are the same. Both of them are both masculine and feminine, so interwoven until they are inseparable. The energy forces, they're inseparable. The only place where they are separated is in our minds, but not in our soul.
Yeah.
When I think about that, I think about the Temple of Maat, not a physical place, but a spiritual womb that has birthed the 42 principles that we're to live by. And I see them as being the seed of Ra and the offspring of Maat, those principles. And you cannot have one without the other. And those principles are the guiding forces in our lives. And they don't obligate anyone to do anything in terms of force or manipulation. They simply present themselves as an opportunity for you to be harmonious within yourself, thus bringing harmony to the rest of society around it. So those hands also, I see as the light rising from the book is speaking to us. The book, could it possibly be that the books that we have gained insight from are just books, and now the insight that we've gained from the books will be, the light will expand the understanding of that insight, which means that it will become enlightenment, as it is becoming as we speak about this morning, knowing that we've spoken about it several times before, and every time we do that, we see more, not something different, but we see more. And the more that we see, the more balance that we are experiencing. Everything we talk about, as you said, the Merkaba, if we are not the Merkaba itself, then we are not what we're supposed to be. We are Merkaba. We are the light. We are Kemet. Everything that we talk about in terms of spirituality, that's what we are, because the nature of everything is spiritual. And that's how we become the dominators of the earth, meaning that that's how we become the ones in the earth who brings balance, not dominant in terms of ruling anybody or anything, but dominant in terms of protecting humanity from self-destruction, dominant in terms of bringing the light of truth into the earth to expose the chaotic teachings of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and all the other isms, Hinduism, etc., exposing all of that for what it really is, as opposed to the light that the earth has been provided with. What we're actually doing is just uncovering it for humanity. And it's wild as it may seem, a huge portion of this journey that we are on was started by the energy of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is his energy it represents the political nature of this country. It also represents the Christian nature of this country. Donald Trump is the epitome of evangelical Christianity, or Christianity period. Donald Trump is the epitome of what Catholicism is all about. And when we talk about Catholicism, we're talking about Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, all of those church Christianity things that's out there. And so I'm saying that with this being a huge part of it, the energy that Donald represents and the underhandedness of it all is represented by Biden. And both of them are about to come to an end. And when we see the demise of those two authorities, we will see the establishment of a nation instead of the continuation of a country who is self-serving and destructive to the earth itself. I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor. Anyone else?
Good morning. This is Jackie. Just if I may, and if
Yes,
I
ma'am.
heard Pastor correctly, concerning the dream, he wasn't able to recall what the minister, the guest speaker, had brought forth. And it just reminded me of a story that Pastor had told us when he went, I think it was Haiti, he visited, and they had an interpreter, and I think someone was preaching then, and he was waiting for the interpreter to tell him what he had said, what the minister was saying, and it just reminded me when he said, okay, Pastor's like, okay, what he's saying, what is it? And the interpreter said, he ain't said nothing. And so it just reminded me of that. And if I heard him correctly, it could be because he didn't really bring forth anything that had any meaning. I'm done. Thank you.
That's a good point, Jack. The nothingness of religion. No power, no energy, just confusion. Thank you for making that point.
Yeah. Thank you, Jack. Anyone else?
If there's anyone else, please, because I'm getting ready to get off in a moment.
Let me say something to you, Pastor, if you don't mind, before you get off. I'm going to show you how much we're on the same page. Someone texted me a question, and that person is not one of the teachers, but the question involves something. I was some of you may not know George was in town over the weekend, and he and I and Pastor were together yesterday afternoon, and something Pastor brought up, bringing up a point. And listen at this question, Pastor, because this is the question is, who determines when Easter occurs? Why does the dates change every year? And why do we accept this?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was something I was talking about, what we were talking about yesterday.
Yes.
The reason, as I said earlier when Richard raised the question, I'm beginning to see things differently, more as an observer than a participant. It's no different than my mom transitioned on August the 14th of 22. That date doesn't change. She transitioned on a Sunday. The next year was on a Monday, but it was still the same date. So how is it that, let's say, for example, that Jesus was crucified on April the 7th in the year 30? So why is it that it's not April the 7th, it's not on a Monday the next year, or and the next year on a Tuesday? How is it that he was crucified on a particular date, and that date always appears on a Sunday? And we have never questioned that. It just doesn't make sense. If they say he was born on December 25th, and that doesn't change, then why is it that the date changes? The date of his crucifixion always comes on a Sunday, but Christmas come on a Monday or Tuesday or whatever day it is. It's all because every bit of this is made up. Every bit of this was written and put into action during the Dark Ages. There was no mention of this before Catholicism came into existence. And when we look at this and we begin to see that none of it really makes sense, and when we began to see that there are statues of the pharaohs of Kemet, there are statues of people who lived during those periods of time, and so, in some cases portraits. Yet there are no portraits of Jesus, of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul. None of those. There are no portraits or statues of them in existence at all. So the question becomes, did they exist? And the resounding answer is no. And if you really look at what was written during the Dark Ages, you will find that these stories that involved a Jesus that was made up were written during this period of time. And if you really pay attention, you will see that in 1454, that was the first Bible printed, was called the Ginsburg Bible. And that Bible was put together during the Dark Ages from 451 up until the time it was printed. And that was the Chalcedon conclave of bishops were the ones who actually wrote these stories. And the reason that the accounts in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are so different is because different men wrote different sections of the scriptures, and that's how that's how we ended up with what we have. And back to the original question, none of that makes sense. It doesn't change because it has to be on a Sunday, and they will tell you it's due to the waning and the growth of the moon. And if Jesus was crucified based upon the moon waning, it still will have a date attached to it, and it should be the same date. So all of it tells us in a very, very loud voice that every bit of this is a lie, and none of it ever existed. I hope that whoever the question came from is on, and if you are, and don't want to speak to this in terms of whether or not it clears up your question, then text to Ron, if you will, whether or not it is clear to you. Thank you.
if I may follow up, at some point, if anybody is troubled or have some you know, difficulties understanding, there's a lot we talk about the Bible that I think challenges beliefs that we've all had. I think we're all here because we believe in a strong had a strong upbringing of Christianity and who Jesus is and all of that now is being challenged in us and at some point anybody feeling uncomfortable about it, I think it'd be worth us setting aside some time and talk and discussing it. This journey has led us there, and want to make sure everybody's comfortable with some of the terms and things that you hear, that may challenge what you have believed throughout the years. So give that some thought. If I rather we talk about it if some of the things that you hear said about Jesus, about Easter, about all of these things that we have been taught to cherish, we probably could sit down and discuss them and make sure that is clear.
Ron,
Yes, sir.
let me say this. Let me also say this. It is not my intention, nor is it the intention of any of us to be disrespectful in terms of people's beliefs. And we're not trying to be offensive to anyone at all. We're simply speaking the truth as to how things really are. And sometimes the truth will make you uncomfortable. Well, not sometimes, all the time, because every one of us has experienced discomfort when we started seeing the things that we were taught were not really the truth. And though we were uncomfortable, for myself, I never felt offended by it, but I did experience discomfort. So please understand, none of us are trying to be offensive. And if for any reason you feel, as Ron said, uncomfortable or offended for that matter, please let us know, and we can talk and help you see this by walking you through it, whether it be with you raising questions verbally on this call, or whether it is by virtue of you texting someone or speaking with us afterwards one-on-one. It doesn't matter. What really matters is that the truth be revealed and the truth be embraced by those of us who are in search of truth. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. With that said, is there any questions that anyone may have about that today?
I don't have one about that, but because we didn't really sort of start with questions, we started with the dream.
Yeah.
I just want to put on the table for an appropriate time and place for discussion. Nick, about 26 minutes and 30 seconds into yesterday's conversation, you mentioned groups, soul groups. I'm paraphrasing badly. I didn't go back and really look at it, but I wrote down after you said it what it was. I just wonder if you could expand on what you meant when you talked about groupings, can I say, of souls coming into this plane, because the first thing that came into my mind was the expression when two or three are gathered together, or the whole idea of meditating in groups. Think of Buddhist monks, think of Jesuits in retreats, silent retreats in groups. They have periods of individual meditation, and then they very definitely have strong periods of meditating in a group. And I know from a little bit of having attended a couple of those things, there is a different dynamic when it's a group environment, when everybody in the room, so to speak. I don't want to say it's a transcendental meditation kind of thing, but just, you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. So I just wondered if you, and if anybody else caught that or thought it was worth an explanation. But I wonder if there's something useful or interesting if we delve into that a little bit, but not now. Just wanted to put that on the table.
Is that
Yeah,
something
I
that'll take a while, Nick? You want to talk?
Oh,
If you go back and talk about it,
I think we should put that on the table for now. And the reason I say that is because I know it's going to generate questions.
okay.
I know it is because of the nature of, we talk about the group. Nick was talking about the grouping of souls, right? And we're going to have to talk about where the soul is and how that grouping works. Don't you think, Nick? This may be a whole lesson in itself, is what I'm saying.
yeah, I think it might be, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, we can definitely come back to it. But
Okay. You don't have the opportunity to be on Mondays, do you?
I can be 6 o'clock. I can come on tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Would you guys rather wait till Saturday, or could we do this tomorrow, Pastor?
I think, well, we can do it tomorrow. Nick, if Nick is available, we can do it tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll be on tomorrow.
Okay.
Then.
6 o'clock tomorrow then.
Okay.
But just to
Thank you.
give you a teaser, essentially as the creator expresses itself infinitely, those, or think of it like a cell dividing. Maybe there's one, then there's two, then it just increases. But every time there's a group, that group has the potential to be a bad word is split, but split into more pieces. But each one of those pieces can reverse that process. So that group can come back to one. Those two can go back to their own sort of higher order. It's just, in a sense, it is the reverse of the process of manifestation, but it's more than that, because there's no loss of what we would consider individuality. Anyway,
So what you're saying is that each one that for lack of a better term, that has the same characteristics as it did when it was a whole.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We can get into everything I want to
That's
speak about.
Nick's Talking Head TV.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you will, Nick, take it back to beginning, okay? To kind of set it up where you're coming from with it.
Okay.
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 Great discussion, guys. Yeah, okay, thank you. And maybe if it's a good good opportunity to pause for the day.
Can I ask one, I'm sorry, but I just want to get this off my soul. I just wanted to ask Pastor Richard how he felt after this second discussion really, but more full discussion of his dream.
Every time we discuss it,
I can't hear him.
Can you hear me now? Richard? Hello?
That's something
Hello?
on their end.
Can you hear him, Richard?
No, I can't.
Sorry, we were having a little problem with
Speaker and it
fixed.
didn't work because we're close to,
Fixed.
Audrey and I are close to each other. So, okay, it's fixed. If you would
Okay.
repeat that, and I'm done.
I said that each time that is discussed, I feel lighter. And I experienced more enlightenment. There's feedback coming.
Richard, can you mute,
through,
please? Thank you.
Okay. Each time that I hear it or we discuss it, I feel more I feel lighter, and I experience more enlightenment, and I right now, my experience is that I'm in the midst of all the light of Kemet. That's what I'm experiencing, and there are no questions that will not be responded to in terms of answering them. That's how I feel. I feel like the spirit man knows all things is real with me. And I look forward. I am certain that some of you feel the same way at this point. If not, I look forward to that period. But that's how I feel, Richard. I feel much stronger than I did when I first experienced it. That's all. It to me is the great experience of life. Thank you. Thank you for the question, by the way.
Your dream.
No, it's ours. It really is. It's ours. And that's why all of us are involved in it. And I think that will become even more paramount when we talk about the grouping of souls, as Nick spoke, presented it earlier. But it's ours.
And Pastor, you sound lighter too than you did when you first got on too.
Thank you.
Hey, great discussion, guys. Any last thoughts or you guys ready to go, and pretty day in the upstate, beautiful day. It's supposed to be in the high 70s today, low humidity. So I hope it's nice where you are, and look forward to seeing you again tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you. Talk with you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. See you tomorrow.